Dario Parente, it's so good to have you on the show. Thank you for taking the time. You have just finished a sound check. You're playing in Vegas with Geoff Tate as we speak. Um, we're going to talk about your music journey, the music business, some ups, some downs. But let's start at the beginning. If you wouldn't mind, tell my listeners in a bit of a bullet point form who Dario Parente is.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. And I'm the guitar player for Geoff Tate. I started playing with Geoff around 2018. And at the beginning, I was mainly, a hard gun for Europe and a touring musicians for Europe. And then at some point around 2023, he decided to rebuild the band, and he gave me, like a different position in the band. And now I'm touring the world, and I'm constantly living with him. I'm involved in all his projects, and I feel very blessed because I'm still, the fanboy. I'm still, it's a really, really great blessing. It has been a blessing for me, to be in this position. I mean,
Yeah, and we're going to talk about how you got there in a second. But before we do, let's paint a little bit more of a picture here. Talk to me about how you got into music.
yeah,
When you first started playing an instruments, because I mean,
yes,
obviously you're a guitarist, but you might play more than that. I'm not aware. And then a bit of a strange one, but once that music bug bites and you decide, like, I'm really into this, can you potentially talk about if there was a moment where you had decided you were going to try and pursue this as a career?
yes, gotcha. Well, I started to be interested in music at a very early age. I was born in 78, and around 85, 84, 85-ish, I started to be very interested in the pop music of the time. Um, and then a cousin of mine who was older than me, he started playing guitar, and he started passing me cassettes at the time. And so after this pop, infatuation, I started to listen to rock music. And but um, I was always very interested in the language of music. So when I was 10, I asked my parents, to get lessons. And I've been classically trained at the beginning, so that really made a difference because the discipline that is usually linked to classical education, to classical music, was pivotal for me because I my goal since day one was to have the same dignity with electric guitar and with rock music. And especially at the time back then, in Italy, the majority of the pop rock musicians, they weren't trained. And so I've been part of a generation, probably, my generation, we've been the first to have like an education, a formal education, and we apply that to rock music. And honestly, I did it in a very, um, uh, in a very serious way. I really spent hours and hours forcing me to be able, for example, to play exactly note for note things that were even conceived as improvised, and that's very difficult. It really requires skills, and yeah. So uh, during my journey, you were asking me if there was a special moment when I decided uh, to do this as a profession. I must say that honestly, in the back of my mind, it has always been there, even when I was a kid. Um, I've always said I would really like to be on stage and play, to the point that I told Jeff once he was in my house in Italy, in my mom's house, and I told him, when I was a kid, I was, I already played guitar, but at the same time, it was also a game for me, like playing air guitar on the
Yeah.
balcony. And I told him that I always dreamt or fantasized in my mind to be on stage with him and and playing there. So my balcony actually was in my mind it was a big stage, and the
Hey,
bases were wedges.
that's amazing.
Yeah,
That's
that's
amazing.
so. As I said before, probably it has always been there in my mind. Maybe at the beginning it was just a dream, but then at some point I said, yes, why not? I was always been a little bit crazy, but I didn't have a plan B. I still don't have a plan B. I've always been a full-time musician.
It's working out though, man.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
power to
yeah,
you. I'm a big believer of just how powerful the mind is, and how
yeah,
if you think positively, or even if you're just dreaming about things, somewhere in the world or in the universe, you're putting out these vibrations. And obviously, you've had to work to get to the skill level that you have, but you're putting them out there. So you might think, oh, I was just dreaming about this, but you were manifesting that stuff and it came to fruition. So big ups to you, man.
yeah.
Um,
Thank you, thank you.
before we get into your career with Jeff and all that kind of stuff, I want to just talk a little bit in this next question about, you know, especially the first few years of trying to be a pro musician. A lot of people don't seem to realize how important networking is. I mean, throughout your career, really, not just yours, musicians as a whole. Can you talk to me about networking advice for up and coming musicians? And if you were trying to perhaps pivot into a new scene now, how would you go about networking as a musician to try and get work?
Oh, yeah, that's a very interesting question, and I I believe that I'm still part of a generation that probably some of the guys in the band that are younger than me, they have a better answer to this, because when I started after my formative years, when I started to be more involved with, especially for example, just talking about like music, um, I started doing like playing clubs. It was still a thing at the time. We didn't have like Instagram or, YouTube. So we really learned a lot by playing gigs in Ireland, in Italy, in some European countries. Especially back then, we had the opportunity, the ability to play at least, for example, a couple of times a week. And that kind of workout, working and playing with other musicians, really made the difference, I believe, for me, for my generation. Today, you have to be able, of course, it's very important to perform, to play, to grow, playing with other musicians. Probably still more important nowadays because a lot of the kids, they don't have this opportunity, and they spend a lot of time playing in front of the camera. But I'm not saying this trying to diminish the thing, I mean, it's just that it's a different world. So, of course, today you have to have the skill to promote yourself, to know how to use the social media in the right way, to survive and to have like position in the industry. So it's a very different environment nowadays. But I think that I've been lucky to see both worlds. So I'm not too old, to understand some of the tools that are very important nowadays. But at the same time, when I started playing, performing live, and I was in my 20s, for example, the world was a little bit different. And so I still, really, for example, I grew up having, the problem of playing well, but at the same time not being able to hear the other musicians perfectly. This
Yeah.
was you had the kick in the butt from your amp, but at the same time you couldn't hear the other guys very, very well. But it was fantastic, I must say.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really made a difference.
I totally get it. I was at a gig just yesterday actually, and one of the guys was using in-ear monitors.
Yeah.
And I, very much like you, grew up in a system where you didn't have in-ear monitors. You
Yeah.
were lucky if you had monitors. And sometimes, even when you had monitors, often the sound engineer didn't quite know what he was doing or she was doing. And so, like, you got used to almost playing the gig, not hearing anything, not
Yeah.
really, right? And it's funny, man, because it's like, I'm not saying you shouldn't be able to hear. Obviously, if you can hear, you can perform better, you can play better, etc., etc.,
Yeah.
etc. But it does amaze me how often I see musicians who've never been in that situation. They've always had good monitor mixes, in-ear mixes, etc., etc., and they can't perform the gig if they don't like have ears. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
dude, I don't need to hear anything as long as I
Yeah.
know where we're coming in, we're all
Yeah.
good,
Yeah.
and I think that's a skill that comes from club days,
Yeah.
I think it's a
Yeah. Yeah.
great
Yeah.
skill.
I'm on your page. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Let's talk about how the opportunity to play with Geoff came about. You did mention earlier that you were originally the guy in Europe that would tour over that side. Now you're the guy all the time. Um, how did the position come about? And talk to me how, once that position did come about, what you had to do potentially mentally to prepare and make sure you were ready for that situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. It's yes, it's very linked to the previous questions. This one because so after my formative years, um, I especially around 2010, um, I was a teacher mainly. I was mainly a teacher, and then I played some gigs in Italy, and but I decided, along with a friend of mine at the time, to rebuild the band that we used to have during the 90s. It was a progressive metal band that was heavily influenced by Queensryche and Fates Warning, and probably a little bit Halloween as well, a little bit of
Yeah, cool.
European melodic power metal. And so we did a couple of albums during the 90s, but at some point we decided to split because we wanted to uh, become professional musicians and be better musicians. And then, after all the studies that we did, the academies, we started to be teachers, especially me, the other guitar player, and the drummer. And at some point, the other guitar player said, "Oh, we have to. Why don't we give it a shot again, trying to reform the band?" And so we did, and we invited the former vocalist for Yngwie Malmsteen singing on the album and on the comeback album, and so the album was sufficiently successful at the time, and it gave us the opportunity to tour Europe.
This is your band Headless, right?
Headless, correct, correct. So we did three different albums together, and we toured Europe three times. And of course, it was like a lot of doors opened in front of us, and we started to meet promoters and other musicians and organizers of all different levels, like festivals and events, and so at some point, I got in touch with a promoter who was responsible for Geoff Tate in Italy and Europe for some extent as well. And so Geoff was invited around 2018 to play a couple of festivals in Europe, but he couldn't. There were spot like gigs, and in the middle of nowhere for him, considering his schedule, because he was touring the USA. So he was about to say no, but he wanted to play the gigs because there were huge festivals, especially the one in Germany. It was the Rock of Ages festival, and it was big, 10,000 people. And so he said, "Okay, I want to do it, but I need a band." And this promoter I was talking about, he said, "You have to listen to these guys because they're huge fans." We were considered the spaghetti version of Queensryche. and so yes, we basically we did. And when he arrived to rehearse with us, it was a little bit nervous at the beginning, But then he listened to the rehearsals and he started to smile, and we became friends straight away. And so, after this, I've been offered the position because in 2023, he had two guys that were in the band at the time decided to leave to do something else, basically, because they were young and they toured with Geoff for 8 or 9 years in a row. Incredible. So they decided to move to LA. And so Geoff said, "Oh, yeah, why don't we hire Dario and the other two guys that we were more into like progressive rock music, and the previous guys that were more like into glam. They had a different background,
Yeah.
and now they're in the in the band again.
Oh,
So it's
amazing.
yeah, and we're having a lot of fun with them because we've always been friends. But me, the French guitar player Amaury, and James, even James, for some extent, we had a different background. Especially me and Amaury, we were more like progressive rock guitar players. So when we started playing with Geoff in 2023, we prepared the classics and all his songs in a different way. It was more like exactly like the album. And the other guys, they had a different presentation that was cool and successful for a long period of time. But with us in the fold, yes, we started to have a different, like style, a different background. You know what I mean?
That skill of developing your ear to the point that you can play songs note for notes, that takes a lot of practice. I know that, most musicians will know that. Um, how would you suggest musicians try and practice to get that kind of ear happening? I'm not necessarily talking about like, you know, you see some of these guys, their ears are so good they can hear a song and go, oh yeah, okay, diminished with a sharp 13, and here's a we're in B flat major or whatever. I'm not saying you need to do that, but actually learning guys solos note for note,
Yeah,
that takes patience. What did you do to develop that patience?
yeah. So it's very interesting because if we start from a different perspective, we're all different. Okay, so some guys probably have their forte in something else, and for me that's been pivotal, not just for my career but also for my musical growth. um, I mean, it was easier for me to be so focused on that because I think that electric guitar, especially rock electric guitar, it has a lot of nuances and subtleties that you could follow, especially if you want to, for example, learn the style of a specific guitar player. Um, um, when you if you're playing an instrument like, for example, the piano or the keyboard, the sounds are there, they're prepared on a keyboard. Piano is very difficult to master, but at the end of the day, the style of a specific player, the hands of the player, they're not on the strings, they're on the fretboard. And with guitar and violin, and especially with electric guitar, because at the beginning, the academy and the control of people wasn't there at all. You could play guitar like Pete Townsend, doing the windmill. You could crash the guitar on the floor and still be accepted by the rock community, or you could be a super virtuoso like Stevie Vai or something like that. So uh, there's a lot of possibilities on the instrument itself. So I think that slowing down the tracks and trying to capture that, and trying to catch all the nuances of a player, and being able to transcribe that, so that you can also have, transcribe the rhythm aspect of it. It has been very important for me to develop, like the knowledge that I wanted to have on the instrument. But it's not universal, because I believe that for other player, players, they can reach the same level or a better level of musicianship, but doing something else. So it's there's not a like a it's not just one formula, you know what I mean? It depends. For me, it's been very important. For other people, probably they're even more talented than me. They don't need that. You know, if you look at guys like Jimi Hendrix or Jeff Beck, uh, I was watching an interview by Stevie Vai, and he was talking about Jeff Beck, and he said that probably Jeff Beck didn't know all the notes on the fretboard,
Hmm.
which is uh, I cannot see myself doing that. You know, I'm more like some sort of a professor on the guitar, but at the same time, Jeff Beck is one of the best player in the world, and I'm not. So, so I mean, It works well for some people to follow the muse in a different way. For me, it was more like having an academic preparation, but at the same time, um, listening, it's even more important. I believe that even if I have this kind of knowledge, for me it's very important because I believe that I really love to have an interesting phrasing, especially when I do my own stuff, and uh, and listening, it's been very very important uh, from that standpoint, you know, because I really um, um, one of the other ability that probably I have is that I can, you know, take the best from different players that I like, and put everything into a melting pot, and creating something that it's um, you know, original in a way. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Well, let me caveat the start of the next question by saying you're too humble, man, because you are touring the world, so you got to
Oh,
be one of the best. I'm putting it out there. Um, all right,
appreciate.
let's shift gears. Let's talk touring. You are no stranger to touring, as you alluded to earlier. Headless did numerous tours, and obviously with Jeff, you've done numerous tours. I saw a wedding ring. Let's talk about road life. I want
Yeah,
to know a couple things. How do you stay healthy and happy, both physically and mentally? And if I'm being selfish, I'm more interested in the mental aspect because as I'm sure you've probably seen at this point in your career, some guys they break on the road. They just can't take the monotony. I get it, right? You're missing loved ones. You're missing wives and children and pets and the comforts of home, etc., etc., etc. So, what do you do to stay happy and healthy
yeah.
while traveling?
That's very interesting. I just did an interview months ago with a psychiatrist about, especially about this topic, and it's very interesting. And oh yeah, so physically, what I do is that I try to work out. I try to, for example, I skip some of the meals during the day, especially my age. I'm 47. So yes, I pay attention, especially to food, and uh, and as I said before, I try to work out a bit, not too much, unfortunately, every day. And also because at night, you know, um, we like to do the moves, we like to be active on stage, so it's very important for the show itself too. And mentally, yes, you're right. I've seen a lot. I've seen people younger than me, you know, uh, doing, you know, having that downward spiral. Mm, it's rock and roll. It's something that it's difficult to control, especially when you're young. And I was talking to Kieran Robertson, the other guitar player in the band, was younger than me. That we just had that conversation minutes ago. For me, it was easier because I started to be successful when I was probably I was 35, 36, and I already had two kids. So the responsibility of being a father was it really made a difference for me, and it still does. I have a family, and I've always been a family man, so that helps a lot. Not to uh, uh, but at the same time, I like to have fun too. So I'm in a good position because I have my whiskey shot before going on stage, and I have a glass of wine before going to bed. But at the same time, I am a father and I'm a family man, and I'm be blessed to have like a wife and also the rest of my family, especially my daughters, supportive. They're supportive of what I do, and then I must say that Jeff and his wife Susan, they're very, very kind, and they really pay attention because from time to time we can bring them, on tour with us. They're on the
Okay.
bus with us. They spend days with us, especially because we tour very extensively. So that's very important, to have them. And it's a good opportunity for them too, to see the world, to travel
Exactly.
the world.
Great education.
Yeah. What I do instead, because you were curious about the mental aspect, um, I like to have some discipline. I'm still reading a very interesting book that Robert Fripp from King Crimson did, published a couple of years ago, which is a book about practicing, but it's a book about discipline basically, and it has very interesting, suggestions. Uh, but I've always had that kind of discipline in my life, and it helped me a lot. Like for example, we wake up and you need the sunlight, um, because you're in a bunk sleeping and you're inside the venues for like days and days. So it's very important to be exposed to the natural sunlight. It's very important to go out from time to time, taking a walk, strolling around the city. But then I have, as I said before, my discipline. So when I'm back at the venue after soundcheck, I practice. I um, do technical exercises, and then I still play something very different that it's still useful for Jeff. And then I do my homework. If I'm working on a specific guitar player, I transcribe a little bit of his music. I play a little bit of his things just to keep things refreshing because it could be frustrating to play, the same set every night,
Yeah.
even if we love it so much. So, and basically what I play with Jeff is some of my best favorite music. So it's for me, honestly, it has never been like oh, I need to do something else. I'm tired of playing this song. Honestly, it never happened to me, even
Yeah.
if I'm playing with him constantly, almost every day
Yeah.
since 2023. So, but
Amazing.
playing something different, it's important for your growth as a musician.
Yes. Um, Here's a bit of a strange one, also in relation to travel. And it
Yeah.
might not even apply to you, but I'm going to ask it anyway in case it does. Over the last few years, um, especially with just the amounts of weirdness in the world, it's becoming harder and harder to travel with gear. Now, when you've got crew taking care of that, you don't really have to worry about it. You kind of just hand in your plane ticket, get to wherever you're going, or if you're on a bus, even better, right? But do you or have you ever found yourself in a position that you're trying to travel with, let's say, a guitar, and the airline won't let you take that guitar on?
Oh yeah,
This
yeah.
is
No,
happening more and more. What do you do?
yeah, it happened something worse while we were touring Scandinavia in during the winter. I think it was yes, 2025. Uh, it was I flew to Finland and it was January, so I landed and it was snow was everywhere. Okay, and my equipment, specifically my guitar case, it's the Yankee, the guitar case with two different instruments. It was stuck in Amsterdam, and I had to play the gigs like 2 days after that. And so we've been forced to buy a new guitar because I got at the end of the week I got the instrument, but it took a week.
Yeah.
So we were forced to find a guitar shop, and we decided to have, like a guitar that actually we're still using it. It's the third one that I bring with me, and it's an instrument that we decided to use as a spare, and also for one song that has a different tuning. So
Okay.
it's still there. It's still there. I'm using it for this Mindcrime tour in the States. But yes, that's, I think it's, I just answered your question. It happened to me with luggage once in America with my personal uh, checked bag. And it happened in France too with my personal uh, and then with guitars it happened in Scandinavia, and I've been forced to buy a new one,
Yeah.
and I used it for 4 shows in a row, and then finally I got back my stuff. So it's true, it happens. And it's so weird to me because I never understood, you buy your ticket and you paid for a service, and you don't get the service at the end of the day. It's so weird, that it's incredible, So Jeff, what he does is that he has a tracker,
Okay.
especially for important equipment, so that
Yeah.
at least we know where is it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's smart. It always blows my mind, I mean, they make such a big deal out of like guitar cases, the
Yeah,
airlines. I've noticed it the last few years. But you'll
yeah,
see some people traveling with like these crazy things, and you go
yeah,
like, they get it onto the airplane, and you kind of
yeah,
go like, how do they bring that on without an issue? But I can't take a guitar in a soft case.
yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
blows my mind.
yeah,
Um, hey, talk to me about logistics and how it works for you guys location wise, because obviously you're based in Italy. I know
yes,
Jeff is more based here. I do think that I saw that he potentially now has property in Italy. I could be wrong on that.
yes,
But
correct.
okay, cool. So logistically, when it comes to things like rehearsals or preparing for tour, how does that work for you guys?
Yeah, it depends. Sometimes we rehearse in France because one of the guitar players, he has a studio there. So if we have a European tour, probably we're going to rehearse there. Sometimes we rehearse in my area in Italy, not too far from Rome, especially in the past. And if we are touring the States, if it's a utterly new set list, new tour, probably we can rehearse in Seattle or in the town that is for example, the last leg that we did, we started from Memphis, so we decided to rehearse there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It depends, and logistically, as you said, it would be great to have two different all the equipment. I'm talking about the equipment to have, the for example, even the instruments. It would be great to have, you know instruments in Europe, pedal boards in Europe, and then just fly into the States and have the same thing,
Same.
or more or less the same in the States. But we still discussing this, especially with guitars, that there's some once you getting used to play the set on an instrument, it's so personal, so it's better to fly with the instrument. But yes, um, for different things, especially um, not very much paddleboard, but uh, for stage equipment, we have, two different. Um, we have some of the things in Europe, and then we have the same thing, sorry, in the States, so that we don't have to fly back
Yeah.
and forth with big stage equipment all of the time.
Yeah.
So
How important do you feel location is for a musician nowadays, especially with the advent of social media? Is it as important as it used to be? You used to have to be in a hub if you really wanted to have a career as a musician. They would suggest you be in, well, it used to be LA. Now it's become like Nashville, Miami,
yeah,
Austin, Texas. There's a few, London, obviously. Um,
yeah.
what are your thoughts?
Um, you're right. It's very important. It wasn't for me, um, or Gus G. Think about Gus.
Yeah.
He was in a, you know I wouldn't say unknown, but it was in a power metal band in Greece, okay, and then he's been hired by Ozzy at the time, and me, I was born and raised in a very small medieval village in Italy, and it was so far from the capital of music business at the time. Um, it wasn't important. For example, I gave you a couple of examples. For us, it didn't make the difference because we've been lucky to be discovered in a different way. But especially if you want to have a career, uh, if you think about Nashville, it's the whole scene that it's there. And as you said before, for example, LA during the 80s. Um, so it depends. Probably if you're if you want to be part of a scene, it's better to move in one of the cities. One of the drummers that we used to have in Jeff's band, he decided that he wanted to do something different at some point, and so he moved to Nashville and he started playing constantly, the circuit there. So yeah, I agree with you. Um, I mean, when I did the example of myself and Gus,
Yeah,
probably it were I was talking about exceptions. But
of
if you
course.
want to, yeah, if you want to try to be part of a scene, probably it's better to move to one of the cities and try, especially if you're young.
Yeah. No, it makes total sense. Talk to me about your thoughts on the current state of the music business slash music industry.
Yeah.
And if you could potentially change one thing in the music business for the better, like if you could make one thing more positive, what would you change?
Oh wow, wonderful question. So I believe that uh, the thing that I would like to change, we should try to find a way. Um, when record sales used to be a thing, it was different. So I mean, it's fantastic to play and tour um, like we do nowadays. It's something that has to do with the fact that we survived this way, and but at the same time, if you think about upcoming bands, it's so hard. So I am extremely lucky because I'm playing with an established musician, and I don't have to build a following. He already has a huge following, and so um, I'm very lucky to do this. But if you think about a band um, that's trying to make it nowadays, the fact that record sales are not a thing anymore, uh, it's so sad,
Yeah.
you know. So that if we could only find if we could only find a way to you know to to change this aspect, um, especially trying to get some money from recording music, it would be very very great,
Yeah.
and it would really make the difference. For the rest, my thought is that there is a huge difference, for example, um, in the different continents. In America, uh, it's the mindset that is different. Even if you're playing clubs or you're playing big stages, theaters, you know, um, it's very important. Everything is strictly connected to the dollar. You know what I mean? So it's the mindset that is different, and I really like this. Um, this thing in the USA. It seems that it's more organized, and also you don't have to struggle that much to survive. You can play gigs in a club, in a small club, for example, every day, and at the end of the day, you can, or I think that you can still survive. in Europe it's different, you know. Um, for example, a lot of clubs that don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And I was reading something specifically, for example, about the UK, that some small venues are closing just because it's um, difficult. There is a crisis going on, and also, as I said before, the mindset is different. We never, except for France, probably in the rest of Europe, we never had this the guts to say, okay, we have to create a scene and a circuit of clubs. And at the end of the day, the musicians, they have to survive somehow. And instead, you know, for us, it's always been like, uh, like, what are you doing for a living? You know, you're a musician. Can you survive by doing this? You need a proper job as
Yeah, what's
well.
your real
Besides
job? Exactly.
that.
Exactly.
And but at the end of the day, it's cool because I was talking to some of the Irish guys that are in our camp, and I was telling them it's true that in the state there is a different mindset. You play your set, you got paid, and then you go home. But in Europe, it's cool because we're, even if we are there just for 25 or quids or whatever, 50 quids, we're still at 3 at night, especially if you travel to Ireland, at 3 in 3 in the morning, we're still, having our beers and singing in the pub.
That's true, man.
We don't give a shit about it. Yes, that's lovely, especially from the Irish guys. They really have this kind of pub culture
Pub
that
culture.
it's so special, and it's there's a little bit of a connection with Italian people, especially in the south. We're the same way. We like to play, especially for example, you're in a big square in the summer, and a guy can strum some chords on guitar, so we're there, drinking a little bit of wine and playing some classics, so
Yeah.
there's a little bit of a connection in between. The spirit is similar,
Yeah, all for fun, you know? Hey, Dario, what do you think for you personally has been the hardest part about being a career musician?
um it's as I said before, for me, and I believe, so I consider myself very lucky. For all aspiring musicians, it's especially when you're younger, it's like the realization of a dream, because you really dream about being on stage one day, and having a career out of it. It's the final goal for almost all musicians. So uh, for me, as I said before, especially because I really been raised in a fantastic small town. But when I was a kid, as I said before, it was everything was a game for me. Like I I I've always I remember, mid 80s. Uh, I was strolling around in my town, and I went to walking by myself in the woods, and I did fake interviews, but in fake English. Yeah, I was a kid, I was playing around, pretending to be a famous rock star. So it's really been an incredible experience, and I was always like, for example, I remember that um, I've watched the I was watching at the time the VHS by Scorpions Worldwide Live, and they were, like seeing fantastic places like San Diego and the beautiful beaches there. And I remember, Bruce Dickinson screaming, "Scream for me, Long Beach!" And tomorrow I would be in Long Beach. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? So I will have the opportunity to visit the arena.
that's
And
amazing,
it's
man.
yeah, yeah. We've been. I can tell you this, and it's super funny. I'm a huge Blue Oyster Cult fan.
Yeah,
Okay,
great band. Yeah.
and we were playing New York days ago, and we were very close to the church that it's in the front cover of one of their live albums from the 70s, On Your Feet, On Your Knees. And so I asked Jeff and Susan, because we were and the driver too, the bus driver, can we go there? And it was in the middle of a big party, because one of the guys, it was the birthday of one of the guys in the band. So, we had a few too many, and they said, yeah, let's go. And it was raining outside heavily. And we went there, and we took a picture in front of the church that was on the cover of the Blue Oyster Cult album. And for me, it was like, okay, done.
Yeah.
What's so,
Yeah.
so I like to visit, places like that. So I was talking to one of the guys, and I said, "What's that monolith in the cover of Who's Next by the Who? I wanna go there." So
Yeah.
it's some place in the UK. So it's on my bucket list. I will do that for sure.
Yeah, that's where they've just peed against it, right? They've urinated on it. I love that
Yeah,
album. But what that's
yeah,
Who's Next? Yeah, fantastic. And
yeah.
your shirts Who lyrics as well. I noticed that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Love
will
that
let
band.
you know. I was reading something on the internet that it's somewhere in the UK. So
Yeah.
next time, yeah. So
Yeah.
this is just to tell you that it's fantastic. If you're a musician, you really need to respect that. Once you reach the ability, the opportunity to travel the world, meeting your idols, be in the scene, and having endorsement. You know what I mean? It's priceless. It's a very huge opportunity. So the way that I try to uh, since I've been I am aware of the gift that I got, what I try to do every night to respect that and to give something back is trying to perform well. Uh, I try to give my 300% every night. This
That's
is what
great.
I try to do.
That's great. I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
What do you feel has either been the best piece of advice you've ever received in regards to your music career, or if you can't think of any, what do you feel could serve as good advice to aspiring musicians that might help their careers?
Yeah. About advices that I got. All of us, because Geoff Tate is older than us. Okay, the other guys in the band, all the musicians that are around, even the opening band that is part of the band itself. Um, we try to steal, advices from Jeff constantly. We always ask, Jeff, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And Jeff and Susan as well, his wife, who's his manager. So yes, every time we have the opportunity, we try to get advices from Jeff, and also from all the other musicians that we meet along the way. And it's great. It's just great, because it's not just about your career. It's also about everything else, like, yeah, life on the road. And my advice for other musicians is, this is very important. It has been important for me. And from what I heard, it's been important also for other musicians. Uh, when you're still in the formative years, okay, but also when you're, for example, working as a musician, but you're still struggling or whatever, what you have to do is you have to be ready, because at some point you have to be persistent, but also ready. I mean, do your technical exercises every day. Be ready, because at some point you will get a call, okay? And once you have the opportunity to jump on the train, you have to be there, 100% prepared to face the situation. For example, this happened to me when Geoff made the call. Uh, I was ready. Technically speaking, I was practicing every day, and also all the other abilities. As I said before, preparing, for example, a set in a professional way, Mindcrime and the hits with all the details. You know, we had a month with the band, and, and we made it. We did it well. We did it right. And so it's very important to always be there. If you have the passion, it's not that hard. You wake up in the morning, you do your physical workout, and then you take the guitar and you start practicing. If you do this every day before you, for example, to survive, you have to give lesson. Okay, you have to give lesson to survive, but at the same time, you're a musician, you're an artist, so you have to take care of yourself. You have to play. You cannot just give lesson. If you just give lesson at some point, you will be a teacher, and not even the best teacher in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But just that, you cannot aspire to play in front of 10,000 people. That's
true.
it. That's my advice.
Great advice. Well, Dario, I can't thank you enough for your time, man. Super insightful stuff. Good luck on the rest of the tour and just with your career in general. I'll be following, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners will too. Thank you for your time and keep on rocking, brother. Peace.
Thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure.